Welcome to the Super Healthy Human podcast with Dr. Rodger Murphree.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rodger Murphree, your fibrodoctor.com, superhealthyhuman.com, author of Treating and Beating Fibromyalgia and Chronic Fatigue Syndrome, Heart Disease, What Your Doctor Won't Tell You, and Treating and Beating Anxiety and Depression with Orthomolecular Medicine. On tonight's episode, I'm going to be sharing protocols on how to reverse or prevent fatty liver disease, sluggish liver conditions that may be causing chemical sensitivity issues, and overall poor health, as well as looking at what you can do to prevent or reverse issues with chronic gallbladder issues. So sit back, relax. This is going to be, we're going to have some fun here. And I want to encourage you to, get a pad and pen. I want to take some notes about some of the things I'm going to share with you tonight. Feel free to take a screenshot of any of the slides that I share with you tonight. You're welcome to do that. Let me get started here. I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint because I think having some visuals is helpful for this topic. So let me do that and we'll just dive right in. We're really going to be looking at the health of your liver, and the liver is the largest internal organ of the body. Your skin is the largest organ, but internally the liver is the largest organ, and it plays a vital role in our overall health. And really, the health of your liver really determines your body's overall ability to get healthy and stay healthy. This is an organ that provides so many different essential functions that anytime it becomes compromised in its ability to work at optimal levels, we really start to feel it in our health. Symptoms start to show up, whether that's fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, weight gain, these different things that start to show up just because the liver is not able to do what it's supposed to do. And I'm going to share with you here what some of those functions are. So your liver's on the right side of your body. So if your heart's on the left, right? And your liver is on the right. Underneath your rib cage, your ribs are there to protect the liver. The gallbladder sits right there on the liver, right beside that, and is responsible for 500 plus different separate functions in combination with other systems and cells in the body. One of the main things it does is to help to detox the different chemicals we come in contact with, the things that we put in our bodies, so the foods we eat, the beverages we drink, the things that we breathe in, the topical things we put on our skin and our hair. That's one of its main job, not its only job, but it's one of its main jobs. So you can look here, this kind of shows you you have different lobes of the liver, the left and the right, but you can see how it's juxtaposed to the different organs in the body, including, as you can see, this little diagram showing the gallbladder. As I mentioned, the main function is detoxification, super important. It's located, as I mentioned, over there on the right side of your body underneath the rib cage. And we're going to talk about, some of the things that it does. And if you've got fatty liver disease, non-alcohol fatty liver disease, I'm going to share with you how you can start to reverse that. It's definitely reversible. The liver is a storage unit for vital nutrients, including fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D. It also helps to store B12 as well. Iron and copper are also stored in the liver. It's responsible for some of our immune system reactions, and it has an ability really to kind of recognize foreign invaders and release different cells or white blood cells that associated with the immune system to help to cordon those off and ideally to keep them from becoming an issue. So we'll look at one of the mainstays is the protein metabolism. It synthesizes, so it takes it, breaks it down, and then assimilates it so it can be used accordingly. It performs several roles in the carbohydrate metabolism as well. The bulk of the lipoproteins are synthesized in the liver. So these lipoproteins turn into different chemicals in the body that the body needs, including certain hormones that the body is dependent on. One of the things that it does is it takes the amino acids that are in proteins that you eat, and it turns those amino acids, in particular tyrosine, into the different thyroid hormones. And one of the things that's needed to make that conversion of T4, T4 thyroxine into triiodine thymine, the active form of thyroid hormones, from T4 to T3, the liver is crucial for that process. So if you have a liver that's not working correctly, you run the risk that your thyroid is not working at optimal levels. And oftentimes you never even see that in blood work. That's something that I see a lot of times with my patients, is that over the years, just eating the sad American diet, maybe having some toxic habits, doing some things that are not conducive to the liver working as well, maybe gaining some weight over the years because the metabolism is run down, but especially see that in fibromyalgia. Individuals become sedentary because they just can't be as active as they would like to be. And then oftentimes just not paying attention to their diet because they just don't have the energy really to focus on what is healthy. It's more about what's easy. But as you start to gain that weight, and in particular when you start adding things like high fructose corn syrup, you start to develop these fat deposits, and that can compromise the liver's ability to convert one inactive thyroid hormone into the active thyroid hormone. And it can be one of the reasons why you might have some of the symptoms associated with low thyroid, brain fog, fatigue, weight gain, anxiety, depression, elevated cholesterol. When you compromise the liver's function, you also compromise its ability to utilize cholesterol. Cholesterol is really not a villain. It's really uh, an antioxidant. It's a precursor to making um, the testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol. It's very important that we have cholesterol. Unfortunately, the propaganda out there is telling you you want to have as little cholesterol as possible, and that's not accurate. I don't have time to go into all that, but you can see more about that on my website, superhealthyhuman.com, and you can see some of the blogs and videos where I cite some of the research out of my heart disease book that talks about cholesterol really is not the villain. And we really need that cholesterol because, again, it's a building block for certain crucial hormones that we need. So the detoxification takes place in the liver, and we're exposed to toxins every day, all day long. The things that we come in contact with through the air that we breathe, what we topically put on our skin, the foods that we eat. We're always taking in these toxins, and our body, fortunately, has the ability, the innate God-given ability, to take those toxins and dilute them so they can be processed and then voided out, either through when we urinate or through we have a bowel movement. Even when we breathe, when we're exhaling CO2. These are some of the toxins, but there's numerous ones out there, right? And one of the big ones that I see in my practice over the last 25 years, specializing in functional medicine and working with patients, complicated patients, in particular fibromyalgia, is that oftentimes they're on a number of prescription medications. There's certainly a time and a place for prescription medications. But unfortunately, with a chronic illness like, say, fibromyalgia, there's so many different symptoms. You really can't drug your way out of fibromyalgia. You can attempt to cover up the symptoms, make them a little less irritable or as of an irritant. But by doing that, you run the risk of creating other problems. And those problems start to show up pretty quickly when you've got a compromised liver function. But drugs, and I've got just a few on here, but really any foreign drug that you put in, any drug that you consume. I'm not talking about hormones like insulin and thyroid and compound estrogen, progesterone, those are hormones. The body knows what to do with that. But when you're taking blood pressure medication, when you're taking sleep medications or Lyrica, Grillis, gabapentin, Neurontin, those are incredibly hard on the liver to process. We're hearing now about Tylenol, whether that's accurate or not. I think the verdict is out. I have not bought into all of that, but Tylenol is very toxic to the liver, just like alcohol and some of these other things that we come in contact with on a daily basis. So we looked at even the things that we use to clean our houses with. So some of the cleaners that we come in contact with can be very detrimental to the function of the livers. These you can see, I think I have some of these on here, but processed foods, pollutants, carbon monoxide, and you breathe that when you go outside. Heavy metals, we come in contact with that, different foods, and maybe some of our cooking ware. If you're using aluminum aluminum cookware, please get rid of that. If you feel like you really are having struggle with chemical sensitivities, then you have to be much more vigilant than the normal person. So even things like deodorant that have aluminum sulfate in there as a preservative. For those of you that are really struggling with chemical sensitivities, you even have to get rid of that. Heavy metals can be a real chore to get rid of, but if your liver's working correctly, you stand the best chance of being able to get those out of your body through taking natural chelating materials. These binders will bind to these toxins and help them get out of your system so it's not so toxic to your liver. So as a part of normal metabolism, our body produces toxins. That's part of the body's response to breaking down foods and toxins that we come in contact with. It's just part of the waste material. So all day long, the body's breaking things down and building things up. It's creating waste that has to be eliminated. And then we're also taking in things that maybe have to be dealt with that are toxic as well. But we're constantly exposed to these outside toxins, exogenous outside toxins. And then we also have endogenous toxins as well. But biotransformation is a process where a substance changes from one chemical to another by chemical reaction. So you take a very toxic chemical and you dilute it in a form that the body can now get rid of it. And that is largely controlled by the health of your liver. So you can see that toxins are conjugated or diluted and excreted in your bile or in your urine. So it also breaks down insulin and also hormones. I almost missed this. And this is important because oftentimes my female patients are told that they're in perimenopause or the menopausal, and they're told they need to be taking estrogen. And what I share with my female patients is that, yes, you may need estrogen, but oftentimes what I see is that you have more estrogen than you do progesterone. The balance is inaccurate. And oftentimes it's that not that you need more estrogen, is that you need more progesterone. And part of this is because you get a buildup of estrogen in your liver. You also get a buildup of estrogen when you're consuming what are called phytoestrogens. These are estrogens that are exogenous that we take in through our diet and think the air we breathe, the toxins that we take in that mimic estrogens and attach to estrogen receptors, even though they're not estrogen. And by doing that, they create excess estrogen. So a lot of times, just to share this with you, is that you're told that you have, you need to be taking estrogen, but you always need to get a blood test and see what is your estrogen level compared to your progesterone level. If you've had your ovaries taken out or a hysterectomy, you still need progesterone. God didn't make any extra parts, and every cell in the body needs progesterone. Even men need some progesterone, obviously much less than a female, but progesterone plays a very important role in the body. So just throwing that out there, just for you to kind of chew on that, or to realize that can be an issue for some of you. You're taking estrogen, you become estrogen dominant, and that creates the environment for endometriosis and other conditions that are largely controlled when you have a balance of estrogen and progesterone. So a little bit about your gallbladder. It's, very small. It's incredibly small, but it sits right underneath your liver and it stores and releases bile. Now, bile is needed to help you break down fat, and fat is not bad. We need fat, but we need good fat. There's nothing wrong with saturated fat. If you've seen in my presentations about change your diet, change your life, how to eat healthy, saturated fat's not the issue. Trans fats, unhealthy fats, seed oil, fats that come from seed oils and vegetable oils, those polyunsaturated fats actually create problems. And we look at people who have arteriosclerosis. We do biopsies. We see the arteries are not lined with saturated fat. It's actually polysaturated fat. I know that's different than what we've been told for the last, 3 decades, but if you look at the literature, if you look at the research, if you read my book and see the studies in there, you'll see, or even just look at the blogs that I share on my websites, you'll see that saturated fat as well as cholesterol, saturated fat, is not the issue. It's these unhealthy trans fats that come from seed oils and the way we put in additives and other things. Those fats are something that we want to really steer clear of. But bile is the fluid your liver produces. It helps to digest fats in the foods that you eat. And those fats, in particular essential fatty acids, whether that's omega-6s or omega-3s, are essential. That's why they're called essential fatty acids. You have to get them in your diet. But if you're not able to assimilate them, break down this fat, then you're not able to utilize the essential fatty acids, which help with mental clarity, mood disorders, help with inflammation and pain. Super important in nerve cells being able to communicate with each other and having the proper neurological function. But your gallbladder is part of your digestive system, and its main function, again, is to store and then release bile to help you break down fats. If you're an individual and you've noticed that you have a really odd change in your stool, so if they're a light brown or if they float to the top, that's a sign that you're having issues with your gallbladder. If you're not releasing bile, then that fat in the stool causes that bile, that stool material to rise to the top, and we call those floaters. If you see that, not the too graphic, but if you see that, that's a sign that you're having issues with your gallbladder. And I'm going to share with you what some things you can do to start to reverse that. So gallstones, hopefully you've never experienced those. They're pretty brutal. It's been years and years ago, and I've had them just once in my life, and it was no fun. I knew exactly what it was when I was having this attack, but they can be very uncomfortable. But they're these pebble-like objects made of biomaterial that's developed in the bile ducts, and they can be tiny as a grain of sand, and they can be as large as golf balls. You could be releasing these, voiding these out periodically and never even notice it. However, if they get to the size where they're actually constricting the bile ducts, then you start to have an issue, and then you really can have some really serious, can be very serious condition. They can cause a fever-like symptoms, dull, achy pain around on the right side of where your liver is, and it can cause you to feel nauseated and just really feel really, really bad. I'm going to show you some of those. So you can see some of the symptoms of gallstones, typically upper right quadrant. So again, over here on the right side where your liver is, upper mid abdomen. So, there on your stomach. And typically you start to get symptoms after you eat. So you might have pain, might see a change in your coloring. So it might start turning a little bit yellow, which I've seen that once in my practice, and it was from a person that was extremely hypothyroid. So the thyroid was not working, and no one had really done the proper testing for her. When I saw that, I realized why she looked like she did, because her thyroid had slowed down to the point where it wasn't able to convert convert beta carotene to vitamin A, and she turned orange. But yellowing of the skin, you'll see this, and you also will start to see yellowing of, these little half moons of yellow underneath in the eyes. You'll see that. Nausea, vomiting, fever once it becomes really an issue, serious issue, and chills. Light brown pee or light colored poop. And again, you start to see floaters as well. Now, these are some of the natural treatments. We're going to get into the liver, about what you can do to reverse fatty liver here in just a minute. But while we're here, let's go ahead and focus on gallstone treatments. Now, these are foods that you can eat, and you can make these in, you can juice these. So you can take black radish. You can find supplements that have a blend of these different things that I'm going to share with you. There are several out there. I don't have any in my store, but you can find them. They're easy to find. Black radish, dandelion. You're going to see some of these other here in just a minute. These things will help your liver as well as help your gallbladder. Dandelion tea. Now, you can take it as a supplement, so dandelion extract is available. Just know that dandelion is a diuretic. So if you're retaining a lot of fluid, for whatever reason, a natural diuretic is dandelion root, but it really helps to get that gallbladder to flush out any kind of toxins in the gallbladder and the liver as well. And you can see how you would do that. You can eat them. I love artichokes, and you can also find them in a blended formula. Peppermint oil. Be careful here if you have reflux. This is something that, reflux is very common oftentimes with gallbladder issues, and sometimes with liver as well, because you're not assimilating, breaking down your food properly. And that can aggravate if you have reflux. It can help with nausea, but also if you have reflux, you got to be a little bit more, cautious with peppermint. Here's one of my favorite supplements. I take this on a daily basis because even though I eat very healthy, I try to do my best to avoid toxins. You walk outside, you're exposed to toxins in the air. Foods that you eat, even though you're trying to eat as healthy as you can, some of those foods are going to have, especially if you eat out, they're going to have pesticides if you're not eating totally organic. So I take my formula. I'll show it here in a minute, but one of the main ingredients in there is milk thistle. Milk thistle has been shown to reverse liver disease, helpful with the gallbladder as well, but it's been shown to reverse liver disease. And they've done studies where they give individuals these toxic mushrooms that can kill them, and they give them milk thistle, and within a short period of time, it totally cures that. It solves that problem. They don't have to give them any medication, don't have to pump their stomach or anything. They can give them milk thistle, and it totally turns that around. So it's one of my favorite supplements, milk thistle. Turmeric is another one I really love. It's a real potent anti-inflammatory, and I use a lot of curcumin in my cooking. which is where turmeric comes from. But you can get this, and I have supplements in my store. A lot of folks are on it for the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-aging effects of turmeric, but it's really helpful for gallstones. I'm going to switch gears here, and we're going to talk about fatty liver disease. So we can see a normal liver, and we're going to see a fatty liver, and you can see those little deposits in there. Those are fat deposits that are built up from different causes. One of those is just carrying around too much weight. Liver fibrosis is now, it's accelerated from fatty liver to we actually have toxic buildup, and then we have cirrhosis, which is actually uh, disease. So your health of your gallbladder is determined by the health of your liver. If your liver's not functioning well, it produces poor quality bile that is likely to form sludge and stones. Sometimes people will have their gallbladder removed and they still are having issues. So they had, their gallbladder had to come out. It was a disease to the process that had to come out. And sometimes practitioners will recommend a drug, cholecystokinin, which is very expensive. You can just take over-the-counter digestive enzymes, and it'll do the same thing at a fraction of the cost. And you can get pancreatic digestive enzymes anywhere. We have them in my store. Most of my patients are taking digestive enzymes. I take a digestive enzyme every time I eat just to make sure I'm breaking down my food and getting the most out of it and allowing my elimination system, right, to be able to take this waste material and get rid of it in a timely fashion. But if you're having problems, you've had your gallbladder taken out, digestive enzyme. The other thing I would recommend is ox bile. And it's a supplement you can get anywhere, any health food store or online. Ox bile supplements take the place of your gallbladder if you need to. If you're having a lot of issues with bloating and gas and stomach pain and other issues, and when you have a bowel movement, your stools are floating, add ox bile to your diet. So every time you eat, take some ox bile with it, and that's going to break down that fat for you. So people with liver conditions such as fatty liver cirrhosis, liver fluke infections, so I've never had anybody with that, thank goodness, are more likely to get gallstones. So it occurs as a result of phase 1 and phase 2 reactions that occur in the liver. Now, this kind of nerdy talk, but just kind of get the big picture of, because this is important. So phase 1 reactions, oxidation, reduction, hydrolysis. And phase 2 reactions is conjugation, which I shared earlier, which is a dilution of a product. It turns it basically into water soluble, and then direct conjugation so that you can void it out through your urine and bowel movements. So the final byproducts of result of phase 2 reactions results in water-soluble inactive toxins that are voided out through when you urinate. And you can help facilitate that. I'm going to show you how you do that here in just a minute. So fatty liver is a common condition from having too much fat buildup in your liver. One of the main drivers is that carrying around too much weight. The other big driver of that is high fructose corn syrup. I guess, and really weight gain and high fructose corn syrup intake go hand in hand. The problem with high fructose corn syrup is that unlike carbohydrates, glucose, just regular glucose, sugar that you intake through the foods that you eat, that glucose can be stored as glycogen in cells. Unfortunately, it's stored in fat cells to be used later. High fructose corn syrup and fructose, even fruit juice, if it's not used right away, it's stored in the liver. And that's one of the big drivers of fatty liver. So if you're eating a lot of high fructose corn syrup, which is just about in every prepackaged food out there, 70% of all prepackaged foods in the supermarket have some form of sugar. Oftentimes, it's high fructose corn syrup because it's the cheapest sugar available to put in these foods. If you're drinking sodas, if you're drinking Coke or, these different drinks, you're going to see that they're loaded with high fructose corn syrup. So fat that starts to build up in liver becomes a problem when 5 to 10% of your liver's weight is now these fat deposits, and it affects 1 in 10 people in Western countries. So it's not unusual to have this. It's normally not a big issue unless you really have a chronic illness. And when that happens, and you've got something like fibromyalgia, chronic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, you've got to be really vigilant about cleaning everything up because your liver, as you saw, 500 different processes are controlled by the liver. So you've really got to have a healthy liver. And if you don't, one of the things you'll start to see is a lot of chemical sensitivity. This, a lot of times I have patients tell me that, it didn't used to be, but in the last year or two, they're getting to where they can eat less dip foods because they're sensitive to more and more foods, smells, odors that never used to bother them, whether that's gasoline, fires, leaf fires, perfumes, whatever it is. I have some patients that are so sensitive to different odors, they can't even go into a store, in particular like a Office Depot, where there's a lot of ink, toner, and these other things. They can't read new books. They're very, very sensitive to these smells. And it's coming from the fact that their liver is sluggish. It's not working as well as possible to take these chemicals and get them excreted in a timely process. So non-alcohol fatty liver disease, NASH, is the term for a range of conditions caused by buildup of fat in the liver. It's usually seen in individuals who are carrying around too much weight. But again, you can be normal weight and have a buildup of fat deposits coming from high fructose diet. Symptoms. So let's look at symptoms and we'll see that abdominal swelling is a big one, yellowing of the skin, just like problems with the gallbladder, enlarged spleen. So we'll see the spleens on the left side below your heart, enlarged blood vessels beneath the skin. So we start seeing that the blood vessels become larger, may start to break. You see these little bitty spider veins that now turn color. Large breast in men, red palms. Those are just some of the things we see. But fructose is more dangerous than glucose. That's what I shared with you just a moment ago, because part of glucose at least is burned and converted into energy or stored as fat. Fructose, fruit sugar, and especially high fructose corn syrup is stored in the liver. It can't be converted into anything else. It can't be stored anywhere else, and if it's not utilized right away. So, carrying around too much weight is one of the big drivers of having a fatty liver, not so much a sluggish liver. Sluggish liver oftentimes is just too many toxins you've taken in, and oftentimes I see it from medications. So prescription drugs are probably the number one reason I see my patients have a sluggish liver, especially if they don't have a fatty liver. A sluggish liver just means the liver is not performing phase 1, phase 2 detoxification. And I'm going to share with you, I know it's a lot of nerd talk, but I'm going to share with you just simple things you do in your diet. It's going to make a big difference in your liver and gallbladder function, and eventually make a difference in how you feel, how you look, how you think. Some people who are not overweight may still accumulate so-called visceral or yellow fat, which covers internal organs leading to type 2 diabetes, insulin-resistant fatty liver, metabolic syndrome. This yellow fat that wraps around our organ is a protective mechanism, but when you get too much of it, it starts to raise its ugly head. And we oftentimes don't think of fat as having a function, but these fat cells are not lying there dormant. They're actually releasing certain chemicals, and some of those chemicals are inflammatory in nature. Certain interleukins and bradykinins and kinins, the other things that are being released, they generate inflammation, and that's why you've heard this, I'm sure, is that if you have belly fat, it doesn't even matter, if it's even just, 10 pounds of belly fat. If you're carrying just around a little bit of that, you're at risk of cardiovascular events because of this weight gain, because this particular fat, this yellow fat, is linked to creating inflammation. So, if you're carrying around too much excess fat cells, then you want to take steps to get rid of those. My patients who are carrying around too much weight, they go on the 2 Transform diet, and you can learn more about that at the number 2 transformhealth.com. The number 2 transformhealth.com. You can see the diet there. It's just a whole foods healthy diet with some all natural homeopathic supplements that curb their appetite and boost their metabolism so they're able to lose typically about half a pound a day. Comes off pretty quickly. And by doing that, they find they have more energy and they have less pain. A big part of that, the energy is, if you're carrying around 20, 30, 40, 50 extra pounds, it's like, this backpack, you're carrying, a 4-year-old on your back all day. I mean, that's exhausting. If for every 1 pound of fat, your heart has to pump an additional 10 miles of arteries and veins. So it's just working really, really hard. That's exhausting. It's very tiring. And the pain part of it is, if you're carrying around this excess fat, you're generating inflammation. So as you lose those fat cells, you see that your inflammatory chemicals are dramatically reduced and your pain is dramatically reduced as well. So glutathione, this is one of my favorite supplements. You can get this anywhere, any health food store, and get it online. We carry it in our store. I use it for my patients, in particular, those that are dealing with mold toxicity. If you look on my website, either the superhealthyhuman.com or the yourfibrodoctor.com, you'll see a blog, and you can just put that in the search bar, and you can see the protocols for mold. One of the keys for protecting you from mold and any toxin is glutathione. It's the most common process of eliminating foreign compounds from the body is by joining glutathione to these molecules so you can void them out. So it's an incredibly powerful antioxidant. It aids in transforming toxins into mercapturic acid. I always stumble on that word, mercapturic acid, which can be eliminated. And glutathione is in foods that we eat, but it's hard to get enough of glutathione. So one of the things in my liver detox formula helps to boost glutathione levels. One of those is N-acetylcysteine, NAC, helps to produce glutathione. Glutathione, when you ingest it as a supplement, it's hard to break down and absorb. You can do it. You can, but one of the ways to get around that is using building blocks that make glutathione and eating the foods, and I'll show those here, basilica foods here in just a moment. But NAC is one of the things that will build up your glutathione. You can take it, just make sure the ones that you're taking say that they are protected from stomach acid, and you can see enteric-coated and different forms of glutathione that are more readily absorbable than others. But the role of glutathione is present in every cell in the body. It neutralizes free radicals, which create inflammation, accelerate aging, are associated with all sorts of unwanted health conditions. Every biochemical reaction in our cells requires us to be in this reduced state. Now, the reduced state is the ability of the cells then to be able to communicate and to generate energy to communicate and stimulate different cellular processes. Glutathione may decrease due to poor diet, chronic disease, and toxic exposure. And that's kind of what everybody runs into in the Western world anyway. If you're really not trying to be healthy, if you're just eating the sad American diet, you're exposed to all sorts of pesticides, insecticides, heavy metals, and toxins. And then the air that we breathe, unfortunately, oftentimes is loaded with toxins as well. Household cleaners, things that we put on our skin, these toxins have to be dealt with. And glutathione, if you're not getting enough of it, you start to run a deficit. So if you're having any kind of issue with any kind of chronic health issues, but especially if you've been told you have fatty liver, mold toxins, or any kind of toxins, you have a buildup of those, you need to be taking glutathione. I mentioned earlier, I take the milk thistle every day. I take the liver detox every day. Just one a day, that's plenty, but I take that every day. Whey protein, there's all sorts of different ones. I like whey protein. I don't recommend soy protein because of what I shared with you earlier. Soy is a phytoestrogen, and when you start taking a bunch of soy, it mirrors estrogen. So for men, you don't want excess estrogen. And for females, you don't want excess estrogen because the soy binds to your estrogen receptors, and now you become estrogen dominant, and you run the risk of fibroid tumors and endometriosis. So you don't want to get too much estrogen. Whey protein is the best form of protein out there. And you can find there's all sorts of. We don't carry this product anymore. We used to carry it, and we had trouble getting it. And then there's just so many out there that I just tell my patients to look online. And as long as it's a whey protein, look for a good vendor that can help you with that. Amino acid cysteine is particularly important. An amino acid. It's an amino acid involved in glutathione synthesis. Already mentioned N-acetylcysteine. Foods rich in cysteine, such as whey protein, increase your glutathione function. Okra, I love okra. It's a dietary glutathione. Dietary glutathione is not fully absorbed by the body, but you can get it through the foods that you eat. Okra is one of the best ones. It also has a binding effect. Okra does. It binds to toxins and helps you void them out. Glutathione's high in avocados, spinach, okra, and it helps to reduce oxidative stress. Oxidative stress creates accelerated aging, inflammation, and sabotage different chemical reactions in the body, making certain hormones. And it's something that it's part of day-to-day living. I mean, it's part of what happens in your body. These different reactions, you're going to get oxidative stress. But if you're taking in antioxidants, you can counter that pretty easily. Sulfur-rich foods are very important. And let's see if I got some. Such as hopefully grass-fed beef, no farm-raised fish, deep cold water fish, poultry, so not farm-raised, chickens that are free-range. There's free-range chickens, free-range eggs. Then the eggs, if you look at those, if you see they're free-range, you'll also see a lot of times they'll be advertised on the packaging that they have an elevated EPA or DHA. Those are two essential fatty acids, so the omega-3s, and those are super important for reducing inflammation, helping with depression, helping with mental clarity, all sorts of benefits for making sure you're taking fish oil on a daily basis or eating cold water fish or eating eggs, and eggs are fine. Don't worry about your cholesterol. That you don't have to worry about that. And even the American Heart Association has finally come out and said a few years ago that eating eggs are a healthy source of protein. But you can see that sulfur-rich foods include the Basilica foods. So these are Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale, watercress, mustard greens, garlic, shallots, and onions. I don't eat. I'm a pseudo gourmet cook, so I love to cook, and I don't know if I could ever cook without my favorite vegetable, which is an onion. I know it sounds strange, but onions are probably my favorite vegetable because they add so much depth and flavor to the foods that I cook. Garlics and shallots and onions, make sure you're getting plenty of those in your daily diet, and just leafy vegetables, in particular broccoli, Brussels sprouts. If you're eating kale, you've heard that it's a health food. It is. It's a super health food, but it needs to be organic. It's one of the foods that is highly toxic if it's not organic because it's so highly treated with fungicides and pesticides and insecticides. You want to make sure your kale is organic. And bringing that up, there's certain foods out there that you don't have to be so concerned whether it's organic or not. Pineapple, you peel it, right? An apple, you peel it. But there's some foods out there that you really need to pay attention to and try to make sure if you're going to eat it, it needs to be organic. I love blueberries. I love all berries because has some of the highest antioxidant content, some of the most healthy foods out there. We give them to our dog, our Saint, our Australian Shepherd. He loves blueberries, he loves strawberries and raspberries. But we make sure they're organic. If they're not organic, I don't eat them because I know they're incredibly toxic. If you want to know what foods you need to really pay attention to and eat organic and what foods you can be a little more laissez-faire about, then you can look up, just Google the Clean 15 or the Toxic 12. Clean 15 or the Toxic 12. You can see there will be those lists will be out there and you can see, and they update it every year. Vitamin C, unlike our pets and other animals that are not humans that can make vitamin C, we cannot make vitamin C. We have to get it in our diet. And unfortunately, most people are not getting enough vitamin C. I don't recommend fruit juice because I just shared with you that high fructose corn syrup or any fructose in too large quantity, if it's not used right away, it's going to be stored and cause fatty deposits in your liver. So if you're juicing, this is a good time to bring this up. If you're juicing, a little bit of fruit in there is fine. If an apple, maybe an orange, that's fine. But you don't want to be drinking orange juice in the morning. I mean, if you think about it, you couldn't eat the 6 oranges that it took to make the juice. You couldn't. I mean, it'd be almost impossible. And even if you did, it would be absorbed so slowly because of all the fiber that's in there that it wouldn't do much harm. You'd be really full. But if you're drinking orange juice, it's like mainlining sugar, this fructose. Your body can't use it fast enough, so it's going to store it in the liver as fat. Do not be juicing with a lot of fruits. Instead, a little bit of fruit for the sweetness, that's fine, and the antioxidant content. But along with 1 orange or 1 apple, that's when you want to use organic kale, maybe some beets, some arugula or broccoli. There's all kinds of things you can put in there. But when you are juicing, it needs to be more veggies than it does fruit. So if you're juicing, I hope you will steer clear of using a lot of fruits in your juicing. Vitamin C helps maintain the body's supply of antioxidants, so it recycles glutathione. It and glutathione are probably the 2 most important antioxidants that we have in our bodies at any given time. Vitamin C, the other thing about vitamin C was really interesting is side note, is that vitamin C helps you to be able to release hydrogen peroxide. Now, hydrogen peroxide because you put it on topically, right, to kill any kind of pathogen, whether that's, bacteria, bad bacteria, or fungus or anything. The vitamin C helps to push out hydrogen peroxide, which is one of the most abundant chemicals in the body, to help destroy any kind of foreign invaders that have not been taken care of from our diet. Glutathione, again, is so important, and one of the ways, along with glutathione or foods that have a lot of glutathione in them, and precursors like N-acetylcysteine, is vitamin C. And then vitamin C rich foods, citrus fruits, again, a little goes a long way. And nothing wrong with a little bit of fruit juice, but just, don't go overboard. Peppers, strawberries, all berries, any kind of berry, black currants, broccoli, those are all sources. I've already talked about selenium. Well, I talked about sulfur-rich foods. Now we're going to talk a little bit about selenium-rich foods. And selenium is really important because it helps your thyroid hormones to become active. Without selenium, your thyroid hormones can be inactivated, and you can go to you go to your doctor and he or she tells you, oh, your thyroid blood work looks normal, but it's not. I mean, it is, but you still have a compromised thyroid and you have the symptoms of low energy, brain fog, maybe feeling anxious, depressed, weight gain, tingling in your hands and feet, cold hands and feet, these kind of things, achy kind of pain can be just because you're not getting enough selenium to allow the thyroid hormones to be converted and become active. By increasing your selenium, you're also going to increase your glutathione production. Best sources of selenium, again, are grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, free-range eggs, deep cold water fish, organ meats, which I'm not a big fan of. That's kind of become a big thing in the carnivore diet world. I'm not a fan of the carnivore diet, but there's nothing wrong with organ meats. Again, make sure they're grass-fed is from the source. Cottage cheese, brown rice, and Brazil nuts. These are all foods that are high in selenium that you should be putting into your diet on a basis. L-cysteine, I already talked about that. And turmeric again, sure. Milk thistle, talked about that. The amino acids, L-cysteine, L-glutamate, they help boost glutathione. Already talked about turmeric. I love turmeric. I use a lot of it in foods that I cook, a lot of the Indian foods, ethnic foods that I cook. And you can find this anywhere. You're going to find it either in curcumin is what you're going to cook with, but you'll find turmeric supplements all over the place. Very, very helpful. Methionine is an amino acid. It's an antioxidant. It helps to gobble up free radicals, and it helps the cellular membrane to become impenetrable and not allow toxins in there. So it helps with detoxification. So here's methionine containing foods: eggs, meat, fish, sesame seeds, Brazil nuts, plant seeds. Plant seeds are okay within reason. And I'm not a big fan of cereal grains because I think grains for most people is too harsh on your intestinal tract and can create things like leaky gut. And don't have time to go into that. I talk about that in, I think, last episode when I talked about uh, ways to reverse irritable bowel syndrome. Sam talked about this earlier. It's an amino acid. You notice I'm mentioning amino acids a lot, right? These are really important. And these amino acids come from the protein foods that you eat. But if you're not breaking down your proteins, if you're not breaking down your food because you have an inability to digest them because of a fatty liver or compromised gallbladder, or you have problems with malabsorption. Maybe you have a hydrochloric acid deficiency, stomach acid deficiency, or your pancreas is deficient in pancreatic enzymes from eating a lot of processed foods for decades for most of us. Then you want to be taking a digestive enzyme to make sure that the foods, when you eat them, these proteins, you can get the amino acids out of these proteins that then turn into hormones and detoxification chemicals. N-acetylcysteine is needed to replenish glutathione and plays a role in detoxifications. It's very important for helping to prevent toxic reactions to medications and alcohol. Alcohol is a big driver of liver disease as well. Milk thistle, so this again, one of my favorites. So you can see studies have shown this improved diet-induced liver damage in mice, but there's also human studies as well. Don't cite those here, but that's a really potent antioxidant. Protects the liver from free radical damage, prevents toxins from entering liver cells, stimulates regeneration of damaged liver cells, so I can start to regenerate damaged liver cells from fatty liver and toxins that we take in through our diet and things we're exposed to. It regenerates liver cells. There's nothing out there. There's not a drug that can do this. It regenerates injured liver cells, and it's been shown to raise glutathione levels in liver cells by as much as 50%. Again, this is something I think everybody should be taking on a daily basis, milk thistle. So this is in The liver detox formula, a lot of my patients take this because it has potent antioxidants in there, including alpha lipoic acid, which can help reduce inflammation, and particularly inflammation of the nervous system. So if you have neuropathy, neuritis, nerve pain, tingling in your hands and feet, causalgia, which is a itchy type pain driven by inefficient nerve communication, alpha lipoic acid can be incredibly helpful in turning that around. But the alpha-lipoic acid, milk thistle, cysteine, N-acetylcysteine, dandelion, all those artichoke are all in the liver detox formula. Exercise, really important for many reasons. One reason is when you exercise, it helps the lymphatic system, which is a big part of your detoxification system, to get toxins out of your body. Sweating is another way. So if you have access to a sauna, have studies on saunas have shown they dramatically decrease your risk of cardiovascular events, vascular disease, whether that's, having a stroke or heart attack, dramatically reduce your risk of type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, some of these things that we're now realizing it's driven by inflammation. And a weekly sauna, getting, sweating and getting those toxins out is a great way along with exercise, because if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And that's so true. Exercise is a really important way to help help your detoxification process. Adequate sleep, you got to get a good night's sleep on a consistent basis, because that's when the body is releasing these chemicals and detoxification chemicals. It also is the only time when you can get these toxins out of your brain. So you have a blood-brain barrier that's supposed to not allow toxins to get into the brain. So even most supplements you take can't cross the blood-brain barrier to help with that. But when you get deep restorative sleep, your lymphatic system, it's another system associated with lymphatic system, helps to pull these toxins out of the brain, and you void them out the next day when you have a bowel movement or urinate. So also we see if you're not getting enough sleep, it diminishes your glutathione, and it can be dramatically diminished. So that was a little just presentation I wanted to share with you. And so I want to encourage you to, if you want to know more about some of the things I share with you, you can go to superhealthyhuman.com. And if you click on patient resources, you'll see blogs, you'll see videos, some of the materials in my book. You've heard me mention things about mold toxins and heavy metals. There's blogs and step-by-step protocols that you can see. They're all free resources at those two websites. So I encourage you to check those out.
Thanks for listening to Super Healthy Human with Dr. Rodger Murphree. Remember, your body is designed to heal. It just needs the right tools. Stay curious. Stay consistent. Stay super healthy. If this episode helped you, leave a review or share it with someone who's ready to take charge of their health. The information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your physician before making changes to your health regimen. This content does not substitute medical care.